This is God's Love Podcast, and I'm your host, Marina Moore. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of God's Love Podcast. So today I'm joined by another amazing guest. So introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, hi, my name's Marley Bob. I am, oh gosh, I don't even know how to describe, that's such an open-ended question. I always kind of think about it. I am in college. I am in ministry school actually. And I've been in college since August of 2020. Um, I am about to apply for my master's. That's a little fun fact. Trying to think. I'm a techie, so I do audio, visual, and lighting for my church here, and my school as well. So I'm one of the few that is here, especially one of the few women that actually do it. So I love what I get to do. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Wow, I love that. So tell us a little bit about your journey to having a relationship with the Lord.
Yeah, that's it's a long story, but it started. I was saved when I was 5. You just kind of and yeah, I really went through an up and down relationship for a very long time. I'd say until about the last 2 years.
Mm,
And that's when it really became my own faith.
yeah, wow. So what was kind of your journey to to God?
Yeah, so like I said, I was saved at the age of 5. But when I was 8, my parents got divorced, and that really set this callus of emotions and this anger towards God.
Mm,
And I went through this really, really dark season where I was angry, went through all the different emotions that an 8-year-old could go through, but I didn't have an actual outlet for it. Um, and it became this hatred. Genuinely, there's no other way I can put it, but this hatred towards God,
yeah,
because I didn't have somebody to tell me look, God's gonna use this.
yeah.
Um, and even then I probably wouldn't have listened either way. But yeah, that started the journey where I was suicidal, depressed, anxious, until I was 13. And I gave my life to God, and I was like, I'm gonna follow you. And that's when I got this I wouldn't say this idea of ministry, but I really became God really laid it on my heart, this is something that I want you to do. And
Mm,
I've always known that that was something I was going to do, but I just ran from it for so
yeah.
long. But yeah, and that's really where it really started, where I was like, okay, God, I'm going to try this whole relationship with you thing.
Yeah.
Um, Still is hard,
Mm,
ministry and everything else with life.
yeah. So how do you continue to chase after the Lord every day, and just kind of pursuing him?
Wow. Yeah, that's something I am just now figuring out. I'm 21 years old, and I've been a Christian for since I was 5.
Mm,
Um, but because I don't know, I always had this you have to have this perfect quiet time, you have to have this perfect moment. It's always that. But for me, it's really spending that 10-15 minutes, just getting in a routine. That's my big thing right now. Is
yeah.
I'm literally spending 10-15 minutes a day, if that's all that I can.
Mm,
But I schedule it out first thing in the morning. And I spend 15 minutes just praying, reading my Bible, um, listening to worship music. Sometimes it's just instrumental playing of some worship songs. But
yeah.
that's my daily habit right now. And
Yeah.
something I'm trying to get used to doing. Um, like I said, I'm in
Wow.
ministry, and it's literally, this is the first year that I've actually been having like a quiet time and everything else too. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So I know that you mentioned in like the notes that you
mhm.
did missionary. You went to South Africa. So
Yeah.
what was that like being in South Africa and being a missionary?
Yeah, I was actually in South America.
Oh, South America.
But yeah, no, you're totally good. It was literally the craziest experience. I I love it. I miss it so much. But yeah, I graduated high school, and during my junior year, they called like there were some friends of mine who were missionaries down there, and they called me, and they were like, "Hey, what do you think about coming and living with us for 2 to 3 years, being like our au pair?" And
Mm.
I was like, I don't know if I could do 2 to 3 years. So I gave him a counter offer for a year. And I was like, let me take this as like a gap year and just like figure out what the heck I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
Because I was graduating high school. I was like, do I go to cosmetology? Do I do this? Do I do that? Everyone's, just struggling to find out. But I was like, I'm not going to college. Not
Yeah.
doing it. Um, God definitely laughed at that one. And yeah, so I left. I graduated in May, spent the summer just like working and traveling and hanging out with people and just, seeing people.
Yeah.
And I turned 18, and then 2 weeks later, I left. Not even
Mm.
2 weeks later, I left. And I live with 3 kids and like their family. And I served and helped build their children's ministry in their church. And I was a part of a college group out there that I met some of my dearest, dearest friends, and traveled and hung out and drank way too much coffee, but made that was one of the points where I was sitting here going, like, God, I was like, I struggled. It was so hard, but I really learned like endurance through that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my life I've always been like, yeah, like I can do that and I can do this, or but when times get hard, sometimes I'm just like, meh, whatever. But ever since then, like I really like that's where God was like, no, like if you're gonna finish this, like you're gonna finish it well, and
Yeah.
you're gonna endure some really hard things, but you've got to actually like do it.
Mm. Yeah. So how do you see God using that experience like in your life now?
That yeah, so it's actually been really cool because like I said, I'm in Birmingham, Alabama,
Yeah.
and I'm at Highlands College, which is a ministry school, and their goal is to send people out into the world, um, to do full-time ministry. Like they are like, we want to send people out all over the world,
Yeah.
and I have friends who are like this is, and they're like kind of doe-eyed, like oh my gosh, it's gonna be so great, like going and doing with this church, and I've actually sat down with a couple of mine and been like, look, it's gonna get hard.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest with you. And I have a friend, she's actually moving back to my hometown. And she was like super excited and everything. And I was like, but I'm gonna challenge you with something. I was like,
Mm.
you can't come home for 6 weeks.
Oh
And she was
wow.
like, she's like, why? I was like, because those 6 weeks will acclimate you to everything.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay. And I was like, because that 6 weeks will adjust you to the culture, adjust you to everything. Because
Mm.
when I was overseas for a whole year by myself,
Yeah.
and the only people I really genuinely knew were the people that I lived with. And that 6 month mark was Christmas, Thanksgiving, um, and some really big like family stuff had been going on right around that time. And I
Mm.
really sat there going, God, am I even supposed to stay here? Because like I need to be home with my family.
Yeah.
And I did not have peace about leaving, but at the same time, I was like my emotions, I was so homesick and I was so stressed out and blah, blah, blah. I didn't know Spanish when I went. So I
Mm.
was learning Spanish. I was learning, adjusting to the culture. All my friends were leaving. Um, all the like interns that I was friends with, all the, Americans that I was friends with were leaving. And I
Yeah.
was sitting there going, okay, like God was like, if I'm actually supposed to stay in this, like, you've got to get me through day to day. And I really
Yeah.
fought depression and everything through that. But like, that's one of my things I've told my friends. Like, if you're moving away, like, you need to stay there as long as you possibly can.
Yeah.
I understand like family things and that kind of stuff comes up, but stay there as long as you can and like actually soak in the culture, love on the people, everything else. Um, because
Yeah.
that's something that really will like change the way you look at like the country, the place you're in, the church, whatever it is. So
Yeah.
even like now, being in ministry school and actually sitting down and having those kind of conversations with friends, that's been something God's used through that.
Yeah. Wow, that's good. And I love that advice of like just stay there 6 weeks because that's so
Hmm.
true. Like you get there and you're like, oh, I want to go home. Like
Yeah.
it's fun for a little bit and then you're like, okay, when's my vacation up? But yeah, that's
Yeah,
honestly
literally.
like really smart of like put it out, like stay there as long as you can,
Hmm.
get through it. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, so what has kind of like grown your faith in life? I know you were talking about that you went through all these struggles of like depression and all of that. So what's kind of like grown out of that for you to like really having this honest relationship and like going to Highlands College?
Yeah, it's actually that's a hard question because it's an everyday thing.
Yeah.
Um, I still battle with depression and I still battle with anxiety, but it doesn't have as much, like it doesn't have the grip on me that it used to.
Yeah.
Um, and I say like so each year we have or each semester we have first semesters that come in because we're a 2-year college and we do
Yeah.
spring and fall semester students. And there's some students that come all the way from California, Maine, Washington. And I mean, I've the ones that I've been able to like pour into, I've seen like this like literal sense of like fear and anxiety. And
Mm.
I was talking with one of my like spiritual mentors here, and I was like, look, I was like, I don't understand why God put me through all of this, and I feel like I'm not, helping out in any way or form. And she was like, have you given somebody a sense of peace
Mm.
in some area, the first semester's coming in, or
Yeah.
she's like, you're an ambassador of the Highlands College. Like you're there. They're one of the first faces that you see when they move in.
Mm.
And I just kind of sat there and I was like, okay, God, you've literally brought me through all of this.
Yeah.
And I've been able to help because it really put a different perspective change. And I've been able to help people like walk through certain things. Or I've had friends who've been like, hey, my dad and my mom are separating and I'm 21
Yeah.
and I've had friends call me and been like, "Hey, like I'm really struggling." And I'm like, "All right, with what? Let me give you
Yeah.
some Bible verses. Let me give you the things that encouraged me." Or I've had people just come sit on my couch and cry. And I'm like,
Mm.
"I get it." I always I tell people I'm like, "You can never do something that I haven't done."
Mm. Yeah.
Because at this point, I'm 21 and I've made some stupid decisions for sure. And I'm
Yeah.
like, "You cannot surprise me." The
Yeah.
last 5 years. I'm like, you can't surprise me at all.
Yeah. I love that.
So,
That's great. Yeah, so what's kind of like your experience at Highlands College been like being an ambassador? My brother just started in the evening program at Highlands
oh,
College. So, yeah, and going to like Highlands River Chase campus, love it. It's great.
yeah,
So, what's your experience at Highlands College kind of been like?
it hasn't been easy. Girl, it has not been easy. But overall, like, I've made some of I've met some amazing people. I've met some of my lifelong friends here. Um, I don't know. It's like one of those where I'm sitting here going, I wish more people would come and experience this.
Yeah.
I like my ambassador group that I'm with. Oh, I adore them. They are some of my favorite people in the whole world. And we get frustrated with each other. We grow, we move on. But at the same time, like, uh, if you're thinking about it or wanting to come to a preview day or like something like that, like, hit me
Yeah.
up, literally. It's like my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like I said, my experience here hasn't been easy. My first semester was really rough. But I was coming out of a lot and growing a lot. And I don't know, I literally wish I could show everybody the experience of HC and just
Yeah.
how much growth, and it's not for everybody, and I get that, but like so many people would fall in love, and
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah. Me and my friend, when they're doing the open house of Highlands College,
Hmm.
the new campus, we went and we were literally like the entire day we're like geeking out. We are like, this is like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Um, and it's so cool to see like where they're going in life and
Hmm.
everyone that's going with them. I love it.
Yeah. It's pretty
So what?
crazy. That day was insane.
Yeah, it was. There was like a long line.
Oh my gosh. I was outside for the majority of it, and I was like, oh my word, the
Oh
people, they keep
wow.
coming.
Yeah, no, I got there like right at 1 because I was like, I'm
Oh
not
wow.
doing none of this like 10,000 people. Yeah, it was
I feel
great.
that. I feel that. It's awesome.
So where is I'm sorry. So what's something that's kind of like a hidden disguise, like in your story that you were like in that season, like it hurt and it really affected me, but then like now looking back on it, you're just kind of like, I'm glad that happened in a way.
Hmm. There's so many. That's the crazy part. There's so many. Um, the biggest one that's like the most recent
Mm.
would have to be probably be my engagement.
Mm.
Literally today, 2 years ago, I was engaged.
Wow.
To a guy who I thought was the one and who I thought was my life person. And I mean that really affected me in more ways than one when we ended it and everything else, but that has shaped, like, it grew me so much in my faith.
Yeah.
um because I came to Highlands College a month after we ended our, like, the wedding and everything.
Mm.
um I was 19 when we were engaged, and like there was a lot of abuse, mental,
Mm.
um, emotional, that kind of stuff in that relationship. And we'd been together on and off since we were 14.
Wow.
We were the same age, so I'd really like I'd found like my like I thought I had found like my best friend and like my
Yeah.
person. Um, I don't know. It's one of those where I'm looking back. I'm still in the middle of like the grief some
Mm.
days.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard because I look back and I'm like, that's the life I could have had. But
Yeah.
I'm so thankful that God brought me out of that for more reasons than one.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, I was telling somebody, they're like, how'd you come to HC, or how'd you get to where you are right now? And I was like, by the grace of God. And
Mm.
I don't say that lightly.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, it's crazy how much, like, God literally used him to bring me here. Um, because I was about to go to Mississippi State and get my degree. I was about to make all these major life decisions, but I would have been divorced and probably with a kid,
Mm.
and like all of these things that I literally prayed to God that I never could have, because that's what I was like, I never want to do that
Yeah.
to myself or to my future children. If I marry the man, I'm going to marry the
Yeah.
man that I want to be with for the rest of my life. And I pray that God, lets me have like a long marriage and a long life with him. Um, but yeah, like that was like that's the biggest one, because like it literally brought me to where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Wow. What's something that like you learned from that like experience? I know that you were saying that like it really just grew you closer to God, but what's something that you kind
Mhm.
of like took away from that?
I learned that, oh, two things. I learned that my standards need to be a lot higher.
Mm.
And I learned that, God will put you in some painful situations
Mm.
to like literally mold you and grow you. That like you'd always heard it, um but that really shifted my perspective of like, oh my gosh, like God literally is using this for good.
Yeah.
um and is really taking it and moving in multiple different ways of like how much his love for us is.
Yeah.
And like the potter and the clay, that verse and the analogy that comes with that, like I never really thought of it because we always heard like he molds us and he moves us, but sometimes he literally will take the pot and break it to rebuild
Mm.
it.
I love
um
that.
and I was like sitting there going, oh, I'm broken, God.
Yeah.
And I didn't It's crazy, like it's been 2 years to like today was 2 years ago that I got
Mm.
engaged. um but I did not receive like full peace and freedom about it until the beginning of January.
Wow.
And like and today, like I'm sad, but like at the same time it's more like I said, like I'm grieving like the life I could have had.
Yeah.
um and I don't know, I genuinely, that relationship and that, where God literally broke me and moved everything in my life.
Yeah.
Today, like I am the happiest I've ever been, the best mental spot I've been in. But I'm
Mm.
not just like happy, just like in my flesh, but like genuinely, like I have this joy that I've never received ever in my life before I like fully surrendered to God.
Yeah.
Um, there's like this underlying, just like a sense of, oh,
It's like your spirit's happier.
yeah, like there's not like this, like there just is like this weight, like there's literally just like a peace and a like a literal joy that I've never received before.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I love that. So, talking about like the looking back on that moment where you because I feel like everyone who goes through a traumatic situation,
Mm-hmm.
they carry that on and they're like, if that never happened, what would my life look like? And that's something that
Yeah.
we all kind of do is just play that like what if game. I like what if that
Oh
never
yeah.
happened? What if that changed? So,
Mm-hmm.
but like what's something that you believe like God's taking you to next? What's next on your journey that you're like, because that did happen, like not looking
Yeah.
back on the future that you could have had, looking back
Yeah.
on the future that you do have.
Oh gosh, there's so many opportunities.
Yeah.
I I'm one of those people that I would say I'm more type A sometimes. I'm better than what I used to be, but I was like I have to have a plan for everything.
Mm.
And then I'd say probably I was 16. And I was really bullied in high school and a lot in middle school too. And I
Mm.
just kind of gave up hope on the future because I was like, I have no idea what that looks like. Like, it's just so weighty. Like, there's so
Yeah.
much there. And I was never one of those people to like ever dream. Like, I dreamed about like a wedding and I dreamed about this, but like what my future could look like, I did never dream about because I didn't know. Like, it literally gave me so much anxiety.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know, that's like one thing. Now looking for the future, I'm sitting here going, I have so many opportunities and
Yeah.
I have so many things that I'm like the thought of it literally makes me tear up because I was like, I've God's literally placed it in my lap saying like, here you go. Like
Yeah.
this is the life. Like you're following in my footsteps. Like you're following in the path that I've created for you.
Mm.
And you get to make like these, like you get to do this thing and you get to do this. And
Yeah.
I don't know, like some of my biggest dreams that I've had, and because you always know like you have these hobbies and different like dreams and that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy how much sometimes you look at it and they're like, okay, that hobby wasn't for nothing. or that wasn't for nothing. And I'm one of those people that have a lot of hobbies and a lot of different things that I love.
Same,
And
me too.
I've always had like, oh, that's never going to be used for something. That's just, my ADD that's like loving it or whatever in the moment.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see like the opportunities that I've been given. I can see myself falling in love with all the hobbies that I have and actually becoming something that I do every day.
Wow.
And it's, it's just crazy because it's like I never thought this would be my reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I had a lovely conversation. You guys, I will leave all her links, her social media, all that in the description of today's episode. But thank you for coming on. And
Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
I had a
Thank you
lovely
for the
chat.
invite. Me
Yeah,
too.
of
I'm so glad we
course.
could talk.
Yeah, I need to like come by Highlands College one day and we need to meet.
You totally should. I would be happy to give you a tour and hang out.
Great. Lovely. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll
Thank
see you
you
guys
too.
all in the next episode. Bye. Thank you guys so much for listening to the God's Love podcast. I have so much fun speaking with people and hearing about their journeys to God, and I hope that someone really learned something from this episode, because I know I did. So don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Marina Moore or the podcast at God's Love Podcast. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave comments to see what you love. I want to give a shout out to this episode's guest, so thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I also want to give a shout out to you guys who are listening because y'all are the best. So thank you so much for listening to the God's Love podcast.